Okay, I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim, Rakah, Quadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who teacheth the Bible in 100% truth. And shalom to the hopeful elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, especially the 144,000, consisting of the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans in the land of the Americas, as well as the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners living amongst the other nations. Shalom to you. Okay, so this is just a real quick short one. I did have a longer lesson to go into a little bit more detail, which I was looking at, but I've just come across this particular video, which I'm going to bring out in a minute, and I want to share with you. I went into this recently. This is Habakkuk chapter 2. There's a lot of men that have been bringing out this scripture recently. Just starting from the top here, Habakkuk chapter 2 and 1 says, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and I will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. It says, and Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. It says, if the vision is yet for an appointed time. And that's the main reason why you've been hearing this particular chapter recently, these particular precepts, obviously relating to the times that we're in, the things that we see. We're seeing trouble in terms of war, rumors of a regional war in the Middle East, which we keep warning you that eventually that will turn into the Third World War. And then on top of that, you have other situations relating to civil unrest, the digitization of the monetary system, the MOTB, so on and so forth. And we've seen, for example, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen problems in the Middle East, and then we've seen hurricanes that have been hitting the south coast of America. And these are all part of the contractions, the troubles that are going to envelope the earth and the people on it, regarding judgment, regarding the time of Jacob's trouble. You have the day of the Lord, but then you have a time of Jacob's trouble leading up to it. So the day of the Lord, great day of judgment, it will be like no other day ever seen before. It will be something within itself. But the times leading up to that are also going to be times like never been seen before. And there's going to be judgment going out in great number across the earth. People would be judged in many scenarios, many situations. If you think we're just touching the start of this Jacob's trouble, and the scriptures compare it to that of when a woman gives birth, and the fact that you have contractions, and that lets you know that this birth is about to take place. And at the beginning, the contractions are noticeable, but they're not as powerful as they are obviously as things develop later down the line. And obviously as things develop later down the line, these contractions also start to come closer together, more intense, closer together. So that's what a woman, a female, would feel when she goes through that particular scenario. The contraction would start, and she would notice it. She would then say to her partner or husband that or whoever they're with, look, these contractions have started. I think this baby's coming. I'm going into labor, basically. And then as they go through the process of getting themselves down to the hospital and everything else, getting on the bed, eventually, depends, some labors can last long, some can be quite short. You never really know. But when those contractions start to come, then the woman knows that this is that time. So we see, for example, a contraction. When we see the trouble in the Middle East, we see the hurricane. We've seen what these Edomites have done to the natural winds, the hurricane, but then Esau is boosting it up, using it for destruction, using it to bring about his new world order. But the underlying scenario is that the Most High is using Esau to bring judgment to the earth in many different ways. So we see that and we notice that as a contraction. We tell you, look, this is the start, the beginning of sorrows, a time like never been seen before. You know, we're entering into that Jacob's trouble. How long will it last? We don't know. And how, you know, how quickly these contractions start to speed up and become more intense, we don't know. We just know that we're in that time. You know, so we've seen the situation with the Third World War, with the hurricanes. You know, things could easily take a step back for a minute and cool off, but then we're warning you that another contraction will come again, and the next one will be slightly more intense than the one we've just seen. And so again, like I say, we don't know how many contractions are going to be here between now and the actual day of the Lord. We don't know how long it will take for them to, you know, become very intense and very rapid increase in the number, the speed at which they're coming. So we look around, we see this scenario. You know, for example, like I keep saying, we had the event with the solar eclipse back in, was it April? You know, and then you know, I keep sort of highlighting 2024, Apostle Tahar, you know, labeled 2024 as a hopeful year of Jacob's trouble. And, you know, lo and behold, from making that decision through the Spirit, you know, what, 10, 11 months, I don't know when he made that choice, but, you know, 10, 11, 12 months ago, maybe roughly a year ago, you fast forward to this time now, and we can actually say, yeah, you know, we're actually starting to witness it. It's not full on Jacob's trouble. It's not full scale. It's not where we want it to be according to prophecy just yet. But we're actually in a time where we can see it. So, you know, from a year ago to now, there you go. You just heard the voice of a prophet. He told you something's going to happen. You had to wait a number of months. You know, you weren't really sure if it was going to be that year or if it's not. And it's now October, and we're saying, you know, we can smell Jacob's trouble. We've seen a contraction. So, like I say, you know, with the solar eclipse, I always sort of say, you know, this is that year. Maybe this signifies a year. You know, sometimes I think to myself, well, maybe it just signifies a time. Having that solar eclipse, the R and the Tha in April, doesn't have to necessarily signify a time period. It could just signify the start of a beginning and the beginning of the end. And even though this devil has been on a downward spiral for many years now, the beginning of the end as in that visitation. So, you know, we could say that the solar eclipse signifies the start of the visitation from Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, and we're seeing it. You know, what we've seen, a contraction, doesn't mean we've seen the final contraction or the most intense contraction, but we've seen a contraction. And so that's what then leads us to, through the Spirit, say, well, you know, Jacob's trouble's here. And so here we are, you know, coming off the back of the words of the prophet who told you 10 months ago, 11 months ago, you know, 2024 is the hopeful year of Jacob's trouble. You know, either that's one hell of a guess, or he's a prophet, because he told you. And like I say, at that time, you know, you weren't scratching your head going, yep, this is definitely Jacob's trouble, but now you are. Like I say, we're not saying that we're at that intense period, but it's here, so we can smell it. We've seen a contraction. Things might back off for a little bit, but another one of these contractions is coming very soon. But continuing here, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. It says, behold, his soul which is lifted is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. It says, yet also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, as the grave. It says, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And so that's talking about these Edomites, the wicked, the ruling elites that are in power today. And, when he's gathering unto him all nations, that through the beast system. And, to operate on a global geopolitical scale, you have to go through the beast system. So ultimately you have to obey the rules and regulations of the beast system, which is ultimately used to manipulate favor towards Edomite nations, mainly America, Babylon the Great, as well as the small hats and so on and so forth. But it says here, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who largeth his desire as hell, as the grave. So you have a desire. For example, you have a man that grows up and he has a fascination for music or a fascination for sport, and that's a desire. And so do you think, for example, you grew up, you had a passion for music, you went out, you tried to get involved, you tried to do your thing, maybe you tried to make money, maybe you tried to make a living, maybe you want fame for it, but at what point does your desire become as the grave? Because that means now to fulfill your desire, you're happy to put people in the grave no matter what, no questions asked, to fulfill your desire. And when you look at these elites, we look at the wars, so on and so forth, that take place around the world, usually this is orchestrated through the Edomite Empire, through Babylon the Great, America, the hammer of the earth, and it is to enlarge the desire of these Edomites. And so that they're willing to put you in the grave to enlarge their desire. This is Micah chapter 2, starting at verse 1. It says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hands. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. It says, therefore, thus saith Yahweh, behold, against this family do I devise an evil, a bad time, for which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for this time is evil." And that's the time we're coming up to. And, the Most High has preserved the wicked for the day of judgment, and now we're coming up to the day of judgment. Like I mentioned in the previous video, the Most High blessed Esau with the sword. Ultimately, he has these weapons to use in that time of evil to bring judgment, and that judgment will ultimately end up falling upon his own head as well by the end of this up and coming judgment period. But it says here, they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. And so that's quite plain to see. When you look at our people, they have no idea, their own nationality, their own identity. They'll look at the Bible, which is a book for their own people, for our people, yet they'll go to somebody of another nation, normally an Edomite, to get them to break it down. So, that's pretty obvious to us, through the transatlantic slave trade, so on and so forth. Our heritage has been taken away. It says here they covet fields, take them by violence, and houses. Worried about our fields and our houses. We don't even have our own heritage. We don't even understand who we are. The people that are still not awake to this understanding. So, what chance do you stand? It says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hands. And so we've seen this in the Middle East. Been warning that the fighting that broke out last year in October 2023, that situation is going to eventually lead to the Third World War. and I've explained before, it's got to go from a local war, which is what it is at the minute. It started off the small hats and Hamas. Now it's developed into the small hats versus Hamas, versus Hezbollah, also versus the Houthis, and even going into Lebanon at the minute, they're starting to face other militant groups from Iraq, so on and so forth. So that situation is going to eventually lead into a regional war, and the regional war will lead into the world war. So we're watching that scenario, and like I said, we keep up with events, we watch it, we know nothing major is going to happen tomorrow. However, this situation is developing quite fast. Things are happening all the time, and like I say, very soon we're going to expect to see another slightly more intense contraction. Whether that could involve World War III, could involve civil unrest, or a number of other things. I mean, one thing I did hear in the last couple of days as well, we witnessed about, I think it's 2 weeks ago now, we witnessed Iran shooting ballistic missiles towards the small hats in retaliation for what's been going on. And ever since then, people have been waiting for a response from the small hats back to Iran. And, I've been keeping up with the news, and what's happened over the weekend is America have, for the first time, sent an anti-missile ballistic weapon. AHB, is it ABAD or IBAD or something like that along those lines, and apparently it was witnessed for the first time on the weekend being sent over to the small hats from America. And so what they're saying is that the last thing that happened was a response from Iran to the small hats. The small hats are getting ready to respond to back those ballistic missiles, the 180 that came from Iran to the small hats. So the small hats are going to respond to it very soon. On one hand, they're saying that because this ballistic missile system has been sent from America to the small hats, that's why the small hats are delaying their response. They're putting in place more anti-ballistic missiles defense systems to respond. Once they make their response to what Iran did the other day, they're expecting Iran to then respond back again, and that's why now they're preparing, setting up more anti-ballistic missile systems by importing them from America. And that's what's been witnessed at the minute. So that's why they're saying, for example, you haven't seen a response as of yet from the small hats back to Iran, but it will come, and when it comes, they're expecting Iran to respond again. So they're boosting up the anti-ballistic missile system. And another thing they're talking about is the fact that you've got this US election coming up in, I think it's less than 4 weeks now. So what the US is saying to the small hats is, slow down for a minute, let us get through this election. The small hats are getting themselves into this scenario, into this situation. They're on a multi-war front with these different militant groups. They're forcing America's hand, and with that, America have to go in and send more troops to defend the situation, help the small hats. So Netanyahu is kind of forcing America's hand, but America is saying, look, at this point now, we've got an election coming up in 3 to 4 weeks. I think it's said a few days ago, so it's 3 to 4 weeks, and for now try to just hold off. So we might not see this response from the small hats to what Iran did 2 weeks ago. We might not see that for, say, another month at least. We may not. This is what the general talk is. So once this election comes to pass, basically, then who knows. But it looks like things are being set up in the background, and like I say, this is when we expect maybe another contraction. Lord willing, it's going to be more intense, and we're not going to have to wait too long. But in the meantime, there's this news article that's come out today. I'm going to leave this link for this video in the description box. It's only 6 minutes long, from ITV News, and it says here the US warns the small hats to improve humanitarian situation in Gaza or risk weapons funding. So this goes back into what I just explained. The message is coming out from America to the small hats is just to hold back. We've got this election coming up, and try and hold it down with all this crazy stuff, because we know what's been going on over there. You got the G word, genocid. I don't want to continue it because it's a word they don't really want us to bring out. But you understand what's been going on over the course of the last year. The small hats are using the excuse that they're hunting down these organizations, but they're using that excuse to completely bomb out certain regions, residential regions. They're claiming that these organizations are hiding in the hospitals, in the schools, and in residential homes. They bring out these propaganda videos, so on and so forth, and that's their excuse to just obliterate certain sections of land, whoever's living there. And these images have emerged in the last day or so, and it's putting more pressure on the small hats. This is all leading us up to this Third World War, because eventually, once the Most High uses Netanyahu to drag these other nations into this war and bring them there in number, there will be a great falling out. And as the scriptures tell you, for example, EU, who are part of the beast system, the EU and NATO, they will fall out with America and eventually shoot ICBMs on America. So there has to be a great falling out, but before that there has to be a great gathering. And we're going through the scenario at the minute which is going to gather all the other nations in there. And so, like I say, this short video has come out, and it's got this particular person here. Now, he was obviously speaking of the troubles that he was going through, and you can see, as it says, Gaza. So I believe this young man was in Gaza, and he was being interviewed by the news recently. And so they're interviewing this man on the news. You can see him here. Then they follow him, in the local hospital where he went to receive treatment, and his mother was there at the same time. And lo and behold, is now emerging. This is now footage of the same hospital being blown up while he was in it, while him and his mother were actually in the hospital. So, there's big talk of even aid workers, people that go out there to give aid, are just being hounded out or targeted. These small hats are literally doing everything they can to stop. They want to cut off these people altogether and just totally obliterate them. And so it gets to the point now, they've filmed this hospital, and they say, well, hang on a minute, this guy we were just interviewing and his mother, they weren't part of the organization, the terrorists. They were there trying to do their best, and yet the small hats still managed to bomb them. And then this image emerged, which is what they're playing, and which is the image that's bringing a lot of pressure onto these small hats. Now, this is kind of disturbing to a certain degree. It's not something you'd want to show a child, but you can see this man's hand, and they're saying that this was the hand of this particular young boy. And when you watch it, they're basically saying you can hear his screams. So now this is going out, and this is what's starting to, I don't know, I've just heard the news this morning. I don't know what's going to happen, how big this news is going to spread, but this is what's happening. And this takes us back to the scriptures. They covet fields and they take them by violence, and this is what taking a field by violence, the coveting fields, take them by violence. And you go back to Habakkuk chapter 2. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as the grave, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, he heapeth unto him all people. So, when you enlarge your desire as hell or as the grave. The word hell goes back to the word grave. And when you go to Habakkuk chapter 2 and 5, the word for hell there, the Hebrew word is Sheol, which pretty much means the pit, the grave. When you read the scriptures properly, there's no such place as hell, although there will be a place called the lake of fire, which is America, in the day of the Lord, when the nuclear ICBMs are shot upon America. And so, it kind of made me think of that. You see this and then you think this is pretty much going to be the state of America come the day of the Lord. This is the final judgment for America. You think of that lake of fire, so on and so forth. You look at this particular image and you start to get a visual. But like I say, this has happened in the hospital in Gaza, and now you're seeing a lot of uproar, and this is why, as it says, the US warns the small hats to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza or risk weapons funding. We know that's not going to happen. We know they're going to keep backing them, and obviously this is all in line with what's happening with the election, so on and so forth. But you'd think by witnessing this, something like this, they'd have to say, no, stop, you have to stop this immediately. But and really, they could go out there now and defend Gaza and tell the voting public of America that, look, we're doing this for the good of those people. Do you think they'd really lose a lot of votes? A lot of people would say, well, that's a good thing. But obviously you have a lot of small hats in America as well. They'd obviously see the opposite. It's just, this is where you just fall deep into the mire of the politics, the lies, the fabrications, the manipulation within this Edomite system. We live in a world of lies. We're entrenched all around us. It's like we live in a pit, and the pit is full of lies. You imagine being in a pit of snakes, and you're surrounded, you can't get out. But the snakes are lies, and that's what we have to deal with on a daily basis. So, I came across this particular image. It is kind of shocking. You think this person here, and the fact that they filmed him, and he didn't have any connections to these so-called organizations, the terrorists, and then they filmed his final moments, and now this obviously it's going out on a worldwide scale. Like I say, this is Malachi chapter 4. Malachi chapter 4 and 1 says, For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. It says, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Yahweh of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. It says, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healings in his wings. And it's got the word sun, S-U-N. So it's, talk about as in the light. It says, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. And ye shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet, in the day that I shall do this, saith Yahweh of hosts. So remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and commandments. So, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Yahweh. And the great and dreadful day, it's going to be a great day for the elect. It's a great day for the Most High, great day for judgment. But it's going to be dreadful to these heathens, these heathen nations, especially America. Anybody that's not a member of the elect in America, you look at this picture, and this is pretty much how you're going to go down in that lake of fire spoken of in the book of Revelation. The small hats, the land of Israel at the minute, that will also be, totally destroyed. However, that will be eventually rebuilt back up, whereas America will be left to burn. You think of the size of America, how big it is. Once that whole place catches fire through these nuclear ICBMs, that's going to be one huge landmass. It's going to be burning on fire for a long time. And then even once the flames go out, the smoke, the smouldering will go on for a long time. And it will be left the same way the Most High left Sodom and Gomorrah and the other 3 cities as a showpiece as to what he does to the wicked. So will America be. It will be an example of what happens, when you do wickedness, and it will be left as a memorial to that. Even from the days of Noah, there are memorials all around the earth which remind us of the great flood in the days of Noah. And you could say, well, again, these are memorials to us today to remind us, why we shouldn't be involved in wickedness. Once you deal with wickedness, great judgment comes. One example of that is the great flood in the days of Noah, and the evidence is all around you. But I'm not going to go into that at the minute, because that's really relating to my next video that I wanted to go into. But you look at this particular picture here, and Babylon the Great, America, aka the lake of fire. It will be the lake of fire in the day of the Lord, that great and dreadful day, dreadful for the heathen, dreadful for places like America. And that's it really. I mean, like I say, you've got 2nd Ezra chapter 16, which is verse 71. It says here, they shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. Now this is talking about Jacob's trouble, and really it's going into the troubles that we're going to see in America. When it's talking about those that fear the Lord, so it's talking about Israelites. Those that don't believe in the name Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua will be persecuted in the peak of Jacob's trouble with the MOTB, martial law in America. But so will Esau try to persecute those members of the hopeful elect, the ones that do fear the Lord. So this is what this particular precept relates to. But again, you go back to what's happening at the minute. You look at pictures like this. This is that same people, that same nation, like madmen, sparing none. So even though we're waiting for that particular prophecy in 2nd Ezra chapter 16, 71 to come to pass, you look at what's happening here, you look at this particular picture, do you need any more convincing that these are those people, those madmen that will spare none? People fan their hand at this truth, and they they wave it away, especially in these Western countries. Like I could imagine it in the US, because I'm in the UK, and it's the same thing where people are comfortable. Life's still relatively normal. I say relatively, relatively safe around them, even though there's a lot of uproars, a lot of things, a lot of problems on the street in general. But these people are able to. We live in a deceptive society, so it's very easy for you to live your life and ignore the truth and the reality of things and live in your own made-up fantasy world, which is what people do. People go to work, they ignore the news, they go home, and whatever their activity is, they get involved in it. And they could easily fill up their days by ignoring the big picture, the things that are happening around them. And a lot of people do that. And then you try and put them on the spot. But then what happens with these people? They don't want to seem stupid, so they try to pretend like they do know what's really happening on a geopolitical scale. But when you talk to them and your information, you can see that they're just waffling. They're trying to make it up, and these people are lost. And like I say, you talk about the day of the Lord, things like that. They fan their hand, but they don't realize it's coming. That great and dreadful day. And so, like I keep saying, we keep warning you that these Edomites, is going to come a point where they become like madmen sparing none. You know, if you have trouble understanding that, and that those are those people, just look at the things that they're doing now. They covet fields, take them by violence. They enlargeth their desire as the grave. And so, you know, they also operate like madmen, sparing none if they have to. You're going to see that in the peak of Jacob's trouble, and you're witnessing it here with what's happening in Gaza and Lebanon at the minute. So I'm going to leave it right there, but I'll leave the link for that short video clip in the description box. There's another one that I'll try and dig up. I saw a little while ago. It was a news reporter, and he was pretty much showing you how, going through the things that the Western media are doing, showing how they manipulate the context. He was talking about the BBC basically, and he was talking about the way in which they present the picture, and he was showing a few clips and showing, look, they'll always push the question back to this direction. Every time you come with this particular opinion, they'll steer the conversation into another direction. Again, it's a short video, it's interesting, and it all links up together. So I'll leave the two links in the description box. I hope that was edifying. Until next time, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kwadash, and until next time, Shalom.